Welcome to the Job Shop Show, where we talk with the owners, suppliers, partners, and customers of custom manufacturers. Listen and learn the secrets of top-performing job shops, the tools, techniques, and backgrounds that have made them successful, all in the quest of raising the bar for custom manufacturing. I'm your host, Jay Jacobs. This episode is sponsored by Paperless Parts, connecting buyers and suppliers of custom manufactured parts. The Paperless platform is a secure, ITAR-compliant, cloud-based manufacturing system for suppliers that reduces the amount of time spent on sales, estimating, quoting, administration, and order processing. It offers seamless integration with the accounting and ERP software tools that shops already use, such as QuickBooks, E2, and JobBoss. Paperless Parts was founded with a mission to make manufacturing more accessible by streamlining the quote-to-cash process. Spend less time quoting and more time selling. Hello, Job Shop enthusiast. I am your host, Jay Jacobs, and we are here with Peter Samuelson of S&S Machine. Welcome to the Job Shop Show, Peter.
Thank you.
So I understand you were in the cutting tool industry for a while before starting S&S. Can you tell me about your cutting tool career?
I was a little over 15 years as a specialist, application specialist for the a global cutting tool company, and did a lot of testing, cutting data, tooling requirements, so on and so forth. So it's one of the strong suits of S&S Machine is that we use the best tooling out there, and we apply it properly into the right cutting data. And it makes a big difference in the bottom line of what a part will cost if the tool is run correctly, because of the speed and the efficiency of the tool. So it helps us probably with a little bit of an advantage over a lot of other companies, because as a cutting tool specialist, 80% of the cutting tools that I would work with at other companies were misapplied.
That high a number, huh?
It's 80%, and they're not run at the right data or the wrong tool for the application. Many reasons, but yeah, it's very.
Can you give me some examples of specifically how
the number one error that most customers make is the actual cutting data of the tool. It's way too slow. The inserts are designed to take a lot of heat, and they work more efficiently under a lot of heat, and people tend to want to run them way too slow. And by running slow, it just adds more time to the process.
So why do they not want to run them at the speed that the manufacturer suggests?
Because they look at it as they want the tool to last forever. And if you look at the total cost of your manufacturing facility, the tooling cost is somewhere around 3 to 5%. Your big cost is in hours. It's in time.
Right.
You're paying your employees. You're paying money for your machine tools. And the faster that and more efficiently that they can make parts, the cost of the insert is insignificant in the overall picture. It's just it's a very small part of it, and people just think that is better to make them last longer, and it really isn't. Sure. The ideal tool life is 20 minutes out of an insert.
20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And that's through many different studies that were done by not only the cutting tool company that I work for, but every single manufacturer of cutting tools have the same basic philosophy of how long an insert should last and what you should be running it at.
Okay. So who was the cutting tool company you worked for?
I worked for Sandvik Coromant. They are the largest cutting tool company in the world. And they're based in Sandviken, Sweden. They're still privately owned, but they are the largest in the world. They somewhere around 80,000 employees total for all divisions of Sandvik.
Great. And
so
what did you?
Go ahead.
I was curious what you did before you got into the cutting tool industry.
Well, the cutting tool industry, I worked in the machining field. I had an associate's degree from the Tech College in Nashua. I ran several different machines when I got out of school, and then progressed through management into production management, and had run some very large shops, as a production manager / supervisor, operations manager. And from that, I went into the cutting tool business, and from that, I went into my own shop.
So specifically did you decide to start your own shop? What was the catalyst?
There was a small shop here in New Hampshire that the person that owned it was not doing the work that he had, so he wasn't paying his bills. And the person he was renting from was a friend of mine that I've known for 25 years, and came to a point where the gentleman wanted to sell the business, and that's when I got involved and I bought it. And it was a turnkey operation, very small in size, but it was a fully operational machine shop with cutting tools, with inspection tools, with machines, and so on. And we stayed in the same facility for almost 2 years. And then we bought 6,500 square feet, basically 2 doors down from where we started, and moved everything into here. And that's where we are presently.
Gotcha. And when did you start S&S Machine?
2011.
What does the S&S stand for?
Samuelson and Samuelson. So it's myself and my daughter. My daughter runs the office and does all the financial part of the business. She does all the quoting, a lot of the, pickup deliveries. We have her, as well as another lady that works for us, does all that. It's kind of you do multiple jobs in a small shop.
Sure. And what's your daughter's name?
It's Elena.
That must be special, being able to work with her at this point in your life.
It is. It can be trying as well. Working with families sometimes is somewhat challenging, but for the most part, we do very well together, and we get along great. She's easy to work with, so that makes a big difference.
How many other team members do you have?
We have a total of 11. We have one part-time he is going through an engineering degree, so he works for us when he can during school year, and then during the summer he works full-time. Then the rest are all full-time employees. And we have one person that's more or less a laborer type person that would be deburring, packaging, material handling, so on and so forth, and the rest are machinists with anywhere from 5 years to 25 years of experience, and everything in between.
So you got some good experience in your shop.
I do, and I have 2 people that actually taught at the technical college right down the street, taught machine tool processing. So they have a good working background of a lot of different things besides just the machining part of it, the metallurgy part of it, and the programming. I think that the tech college has had 3 or 4 different software packages, and they still use at least 2 of them. So you get experience with other programming techniques and or software.
Sure.
So we're pretty versatile in that part of it. And then with my background in between the cutting tools and working for several different shops and fabrication and stuff like that, it's a pretty good group. We spend time on everything that we do to just look at it, come up with a plan, and get everybody's input, and then go with the best idea and make it work.
Sure. Do you run more than one shift?
We do not. We run one shift, and the reason for that is it's so difficult to find skilled laborers in this market. With the unemployment as low as it is, it's very difficult. And in order to implement a second shift, I need to get at least 2 people And, it's one of the things that we're working towards for this year is to try to do that. But I'm telling you, it's very disappointing when you put an ad in, what you get for responses. People are not moving. They have good jobs, and the good people out there are well taken care of. So it's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, at Rapid, I know that we always found second shift the most difficult to staff. Third shift was actually easier.
Right.
Yeah.
I've asked, I've gone through the people we have here, and if there's anybody interested in it, and there is one person that is interested, and if we found somebody else, he would be willing to do that. But he's the only one. The rest are not interested at all. And, I don't blame them. I worked second shift I think I did it for about 6 years when I first got out of college. And I mean, when you're young and single, it's not that big of a deal. But when you have a family, it definitely becomes more of a headache than it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are you located physically?
We're located in Amherst, New Hampshire. It's a great industrial park because of its location. We're only 10 minutes to Route 3, which can get us anywhere fairly quickly. And we do a lot of traveling to Massachusetts to customers, and then we do a lot of traveling to different subcontractors of ours. So it's handy to be close to the highway.
Yes, yes. And what types of processes do you perform in your shop?
We pretty much are exclusive to doing milling, 4-axis milling, 3-axis milling. We have several turning machines. We have a 5-axis water jet, and we have a couple of saws, band saws, and so on.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
We're a job shop, and we do probably 80% of our work is 2 pieces, 1 to 2 pieces. We do a lot of prototype, a lot of fast turnaround. We're versatile enough that we can have something come in today and we can ship it in the morning.
Really, you're turning around parts that fast at times?
We can, especially if it's a water jet job. There's a lot of times we get the okay or the PO in the morning, and the part is ready for the pickup in the afternoon or delivery in the afternoon.
Okay. So you're good at the short runs and the prototypes. What types of part geometries and materials best suit your shop?
Geometry is the more difficult, the better. We pride ourselves in probably the tougher work that's out there. We get several jobs because nobody else will even quote it. Materials, it doesn't matter. We cut everything from glass to Inconel and everything in between.
So you'll do the Inconel and Invar and stuff like that?
All of the heat-resistant super alloys, yeah. We machine several different grades of that for different applications, mostly oil and gas and some aerospace. But we cut any type of material. The most prevalent material, I think, probably our biggest mover is stainless steel.
Okay. So you touched a little bit upon how quickly you turn around parts. In general, you must have repeat customers who keep coming back to you. Why do they like you? Why do they say S&S is the shop that we go to?
For several different reasons. Number one reason is the parts are right, and they're to their print when they leave the shop. They get them on time, and when they're in trouble and they need help to get parts done quickly, we can do that for them. And it all looks good on paper and in a design of a full-blown machine, like we do a lot of assembly type machines. But once they start putting them together, they find the little things that there should have been a hole here, or there should have been something here, and just to modify and repair these parts in a very short order is critical for 2 of my customers, and we get it done for them.
Do you have any specific stories on some projects where you made the difference in a program?
We've done that so many times that's hard to pinpoint one. I mean, we've done several variations of a 3D printer, a metal 3D printer,
Mm-hmm.
and in each variation, when it came down to basically the riggers are coming to get the machine in a day, we're modifying 4 or 5 parts to be put on and get it assembled so the riggers could take the machine the next day. And that's happened on 3 different builds, all for the same customer. But hey, we made it happen. We stayed late and we got it done.
So your first shift ran into your second shift. Sounds like.
I was going to say one shift was 2 shifts.
Yeah. So I'm always curious about the equipment run in the shop, and you have Hercos and Prototracs for milling and turning. Why'd you choose them?
Just the ease of programming. They're both conversational type machines.
Mm-hmm.
They will take a program in multiple ways. The easiest is obviously conversational, but then it'll also work off of an AutoCAD DXF file, and they'll take a regular Mastercam program. So for me to do 1 and 2 pieces, I can't be spending a half an hour or an hour making a program. It has to be done in 5 or 10 minutes. And these machines are capable of doing that. And it's the accuracy of the machines are phenomenal, especially the Hercos. They hold extremely tight tolerances, which, again, we look for that kind of work because nobody else wants to do it. And they're capable of holding those tight tolerances. The equipment in our shop is, I think the oldest Herco I have is 6 years old. And the reason that they are that new is they run constantly and they make good parts and they're very accurate. Once they get around 7, 8 years old, I trade them in.
It's an expensive strategy, but it sounds like it pays off in the long run with better parts.
It absolutely pays off, and it's more. And it's again back to the biggest cost in any manufacturing facility is time.
Mm-hmm.
Paying the labor, paying the light bill, et cetera, et cetera. So if those machines are down and they're making no money, they're costing you money. So it's the only way to do it.
That's right. If the spindle's not turning, you're not making money.
No money. Nope.
So you talked about the tolerances, particularly on the Herco, you can hit pretty tight. So beyond tolerance, why would you perhaps run a part on a Herco and not a Prototrac or vice versa?
Physical size.
What's machine?
The Hercos are bigger. They have 24 by 48 tables or travel, X and Y. They got more. They got bigger spindles. They got higher RPM spindles. So you have all that going for you on the Hercos. The Prototracs are smaller, physically smaller and smaller in table size. Spindle speeds are much, much lower, especially when you get into small, tight diameter corners and stuff like that. You need the higher spindle speed for the tool. So the decision is probably it's based on that. And the number 2 thing is the tolerance of the part. The Hercos are much more accurate than the Prototracs. So.
Okay. And you have a Omax water jet? Why an Omax?
That's right. I looked at several different options or different manufacturers. The biggest reason I went with the Omax was the service after the sale. Mm-hmm. They have better coverage up in this area. Their pricing of the machines are comparable. I think I looked at Flow, which was much more money, and I looked at one other one, and I can't remember now what it was, but they were comparable. But again, the service and the people available to work on these machines are much stronger in this region than anybody else's machines. As a water jet it's a great machine. However, there's a lot of wear items. There's a lot of maintenance and repair. We do probably 70% of that ourselves, But then there's other bigger projects that need to be, like, for example, a full motor rebuild or full pump rebuild or any of that type of stuff has to be done by a certified technician. Sure. So you need to have somebody that can come in and do it in a reasonable amount of time. The machine does a ton of work, but it has a lot of work, a big backlog. It's probably the most efficient machine as far as keeping up with schedules and making parts on time that's in the shop.
Do you run it unattended, or do you need someone there?
You can to some degree. You have to pick and choose where you do that because they all say you can run them unattended. However, there's things that happen, like, for example, when you cut a little piece out on like a rectangle out on a piece of metal, that rectangle can tip up, and then when the machine moves, it'll break the nozzle right off the machine. So you have to pick and choose. Stuff with just holes in it, no problem. But stuff with details, such as a rectangular piece or something that's going to be cut out, it can cause problems.
And how thick does it cut? It probably varies by material, but
if it's in a steel or a stainless steel, the thickest it'll cut is 6 inches thick. But you can go all the way from like shim stock of 1/1000 thick to 6 inches thick. It's not the most efficient machine, but you have a lot of advantages to the water jet as you don't get any heat zones on your cut, which you do with a lot of the other processes that cut plate and sheet material.
So if you're cutting, say, a 3-inch thick piece of steel, what sort of tolerances can you expect on the machine?
Easily plus or minus 5.
And the Omax you have, is that a 5-axis?
It's a 5-axis machine. It has a head that pivots and rotates along with your X and Y and Z.
So is that part of how it hits a plus or minus 5 tolerance?
Correct.
Being a 5-axis?
That head, right? You can, when you cut with any type of a machine like this, a water jet or whatever, as the stream goes through the part, it actually collapses. So you would get a taper from the top to the bottom, caused by the stream collapsing through the cut.
Mm-hmm.
With this 5-axis machine, it actually offsets the head so that when you cut the part you're cutting, the wall stays straight. And that's fully adjustable. The machine does it automatically, but if you want to tweak it in a little even closer, you can do that.
So if you had a standard water jet, I guess a 2.5 axis without the ability to tilt the head, what sort of tolerances would you see?
On something 3 inches thick, you're looking at about 30 thousandths taper from top to bottom.
Sure. So that makes a huge difference then.
Huge difference. Yeah, it's funny. It's a very, very expensive option, and I really I almost didn't buy it because of the price tag. And now that I have it, it's like I would have kicked myself if I didn't get it. It was well worth it. There's not a lot of them around here. There's only a few other ones in all of New England. So I get work because of that, because I can cut a plate or a piece of steel or anything else and keep the wall straight where other people can't.
Right. So you go to essentially a machine that's producing parts to tolerance instead of near net shape.
Correct.
Yeah. And do you do any precision grinding in-house?
We don't. I have 2 companies that I sub that work to. I believe in the theory of do what you're good at and let the other people that are good at grinding do, or any other outside service, let them do that.
Yeah. How about welding?
I sub that out to 3 other companies, depending on size of the part. And we do a lot of sheet metal parts as well, but if we don't bend or form any sheet metal, we have 2 people that do that for us. We do a lot of sheet metal because of the water jet, because it can cut shapes that a punch can't do, or that it can hold tolerances that a punch may not be able to. So we do a lot of sheet metal blanks, if you will, that get bent at a later date.
Gotcha. And I saw on your Facebook page a very, very tiny drill. What was the diameter of that drill?
That was, I think that one was
8,000.
8 or 10. I don't remember now.
Okay.
But
What's the story there?
Some work. Yeah, we have had several jobs where we had to put in small features into parts that were not even sure what they were eventually used for, but it was for a lab down in Boston, and there were extremely small holes and extremely small end mills. It took quite some time to get a process to make them work. The material was a phenolic-based material, like a G10-based material. But yeah, like I said, we want the more difficult work. We're good at it.
Looking at that drill, I was thinking, how did you not snap those continuously?
Well, when we started, we did break a few of them.
Sure.
But once you figure it out, it works.
Mm-hmm. Do you use any coolant with a drill that small?
You do. Yeah.
Is that part of the secret to success? Is keeping?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, people use coolant and they don't understand coolant, because there's a lot that goes with that. Is how much of the percentage of the coolant material do you have mixed with your water, and you have to vary that depending on materials and what you're doing with it. Mm-hmm. So this again, you got a technology that you got to use correctly to get the best or the most efficient way to use it.
Right.
But yeah, we used coolant on that, and it was extremely rich mixture of coolant to get it to work.
Sure. And you mentioned Mastercam before. Is that the CAM software that you're using in house?
It is. We myself and my lead guy and the one person that does the programming at the tech college, we kind of looked at 3 different softwares, and we went with Mastercam for 2 reasons. One is they have a company down in Connecticut that supports it, and you can actually bring models right down there. They'll make programs for you. They'll work with you over, the internet and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Plus, the amount of Mastercam seats sold in New England is like 5 to 10 times more than anybody else. They're like way out in front, so you're better off finding a person that knows Mastercam than other software packages when you're hiring.
Yeah.
So it was a twofold reason that we went with it. And quite frankly, when I worked at the tech college, I did do some work with Mastercam many, many years ago, and found it to be very difficult to work with, very cumbersome. And then when I went through this process of buying this seat of Mastercam I have now, I couldn't believe how simple it is and how much it has changed. They've really made it so that it's user-friendly. And they also, they listen to the cutting tool companies. They have dynamic paths, which we use all the time, which gives you the best tool life and gives you the most efficient or most cubic inches of material being removed.
Tell me a little more about the dynamic path.
It's using a logic of fast and light, meaning very high feeds, very high speeds, very light engagement or radial depth of cut. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, your cutter, your amount of cubic inches of material you're removing is probably in the 4 to 5 times better than just taking an end mill and running it down the middle of the part, for example.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And and again, it does, because of the way it works, it gives you better tool life at the same time.
Gotcha. Are there any other particular suppliers that you really lean on and can't live without?
For my cutting tools, I use probably 3. I use Sandvik, I use Walthers, and I use Helical. They're an end mill company out of Maine. Mm-hmm. And for just general supplies. I use a company out of Maine called Butler Brothers. They're extremely good at finding stuff when I can't find it. Hey, I'm looking for whatever, and they'll put the legwork in, and they'll find a tool to do a job that I may need. As far as materials and cutting, raw materials, I have no allegiance to anybody. Whoever's the best price with good quality stock.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about it.
Okay. And thinking about when customers engage with you, are you the primary estimator for the shop?
I do all of it.
You do all of it? Okay.
I do all the estimating. I do all of the initial, when orders received, the initial, going through the prints, verifying materials, verifying, that all the information is there to run the job.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, when doing that, in actually quite a few cases, especially on new design parts, we'll find a lot of times errors or overlooked features on drawings and or models.
So the two don't match necessarily.
Right. And it's I think it's the way this whole world works now. Everything's fast and got to have it right away. And sometimes it works a little better if you just step back and slow down a little bit and make sure everything's right.
Sure. And you use the Paperless Parts platform for your quoting?
I do, on probably, I'd say about 90% now.
Mm-hmm. And how long you been using that?
Oh boy, 3 years, 2 to 3 years anyway.
Yeah.
And it's gradually come from hardly ever using it to using it sometimes to now where we're at, and use it most of the time because of, first of all, it's very accurate. It's very fast. I mean, you couldn't put a quote together quicker than what it will do.
Mm-hmm.
The times that when I verify it, I do take time to look at, especially with the water jet, because sometimes I feel if you look at a part as being a milled part or a water jet part, they're
mm-hmm.
two different animals.
Right.
And with the software or any software, you can only tell it one A or B. You can't tell it to look, how much would it cost if you milled it versus water jet cutting it. And sometimes I have to make adjustments on that.
And that's pretty flexible.
Yeah.
And how is quoting with the Paperless Parts platform different than how you used to quote?
This actually uses some logic. I would take a look at a part and I'd say that's going to take me 4 hours to make, and this is going to cost this much.
Did you use a spreadsheet, and how did you?
I did not. I took the printout. I figured out how much the stock was going to cost, any outside coatings or painting or welding, and then I would just basically come up with a number for machining it, and it worked, and it was, we made money at it, but it's more the paperless part of it. It has all that built into it, the materials and so on and so forth, and coatings, and
mm-hmm.
It's just, it saves me legwork and time, because I'd have to take that, especially if it's a part that gets anodized or print, I'd have to send it out, have a quote made up, they'd send it back, and then just wrap up all these numbers into a final price, whereas the paperless does that for you.
Well, it sounds like it saves you some time.
I think that, as you continue to improve it,
mm-hmm.
which has been really my driving factor to continue to use it, is that people want to make it better. Every time you release something new, it seems to make it better. So, and that's important. And if and especially in this day and age, if you get to a point and say, "Oh, this thing works great," stop working on it, somebody else is going to come up with something that's going to work better.
Right. Have you used the feature which allows you to offer expedites in the delivery date?
We use that all the time.
And is that helpful? Are you getting expedite fees now where you might not have before?
I've always gotten them, but it would be, hey, they want it in a week instead of 2 weeks. Okay, well, we'll charge them 10% more or whatever the case may be. We've always gotten something to do it, but not I'll take that back. Not always. We did, on occasion, get extra money. But now with this, we put in the pricing for, you want it in a week, 2 weeks, whatever, the customer can pick and choose. And I have several customers that almost half of what they do is on an expedite fee. But that's the way they want it. So
sure.
And it works. It's simple for us because I put a lead time on when I do the initial quote, or I don't actually do it. Elena does the initial quote. We have a lead time, and then she breaks it down to, okay, if you don't want it in 25 days, this is 20 days, this is 15 days, and so on. Mm-hmm. And it does it automatically. So that works good.
So
I'm more excited to see how you were going to, integrate this into QuickBooks, because we still use QuickBooks, and the two need to communicate, and that's kind of like I know you were working on some beta sites and so on, and I'm hoping that's coming along.
From what I understand, that's coming soon.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And you have also worked with Matt Sardillo at Paperless on some marketing services. Is that correct?
Correct. Matt's good at that. He does. He brought our web page to the 21st century, and he does. He has a good eye for it, I guess is the way to put it. It looks good. It looks professional. It's easy to navigate. It's you can get a quote right from that through Paperless. Just a lot of things that he did, just little subtleties that just make it that much better. And I've gotten at least 5 to 8 new customers since we did the last uprev on that site.
Really?
So yeah.
So he's probably worked on your search engine optimization, so people find you.
Right, and he's tracking that. How many people go through it, so on and so forth, and those numbers just continually to go up every single month. So
fantastic.
It really does. It does make a difference. Because I know how much I use Google searching for somebody that's going to do something. Is looking for some electric polishing this week, mm-hmm. and went through Google, and people that came up on it got quotes. They got an opportunity to quote it.
Right.
So it does work good.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm curious a little bit more about yourself and how you're engaged in the business. So what do you like best about your job that gets you out of bed every morning, Peter?
Well, the challenge is always something that's good and bad. Sometimes you really feel great when you're really challenged and it comes out really well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're not feeling so good when it's not coming out so well. But I enjoy the work. I've done this all my life, worked in the machining arena, and it's good to be, to do your own thing, do things the way you want them done. And we have good people, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Right.
They care about their job. They care about what happens to SNS and so on and so forth. And my goal is to, eventually Elena's going to be the one that will do the whole thing. That's where we're headed. She's at present going through the tech college and getting a degree in machine tool.
Really?
She has a bachelor. Yeah, she has a bachelor's degree, and she's getting. She will graduate this May from the tech college with a degree in machine tool processing.
That's the National Community College,
Yeah.
NCC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they have a fantastic program there.
They do. And, she's, I mean, from when she started, knew nothing about a print or a tolerance or a dimension or anything. Now she can read a print. She understands tolerancing. She understands a lot of stuff. She's actually working with our Mastercam as she's learning at school. She's actually making some programs and stuff that's going to be great.
Where do you?
It on her own.
Yeah. So where do you see your business in 10 years or so? Will you still be involved in it, do you think?
No. 5 years, I'm out.
Okay.
She'll be it. I see the business just continuing to grow at the rate we're growing now, which is somewhere around 25%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any reason why it won't. Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to hire somebody for the more the more technical part of the business, which is the stuff that I do now, with more experience to help cover my leaving the business. But we'll be fine.
Is there any particular technology or equipment you hope to bring in-house that would be a game changer for S&S?
I haven't really. I mean, we've been looking at a 3D printer for what they've done now. They've come up with 3D printers that will actually print out jaws for vice jaws and jaws for a lathe, special jaws, so you don't have to machine them, you don't have to make them. That they'll print out. You can run it unattended, through the night. You come in the morning and your jaws will be made. It's one of the things I've been to 2 different seminars on it. I'm intrigued about the not having to machine them. That this can just make them. And it runs by itself. You make put a program in it and then just let it go, which would save a lot of time on my machines to just keep making parts and not have to go and make a program to mill out a set of jaws. This thing will make it for us. So that's probably going to happen this year. I've kind of narrowed it down to 2. I like what I see. I like the tolerances that they can hold. And yeah, I mean, more spindle time is more money for us. So
absolutely.
Yep.
So we often hear that there's a gap between design and manufacturing. Are there any suggestions you can share how customers can help themselves in best working with you?
Yeah, we do it a lot with some of the customers I work with now. Is we have design reviews that I get involved with, and whether we do it over the internet or if it's a company down in driving distance, I drive there and we have a meeting and we go over the design and talk about diameter to depth ratios of a tight tolerance bore, we just changed the design on a major project for one of the oil companies that would have been no less than a $5,000 special tool to do a bore that was 8 times diameter with a 32 finish on the bottom. I mean, you're going to have a special tool for that. Well, my input was, let's just make a cover for this thing and mill it. And within about 10 minutes, they had a rough design on the board. It's like, yeah, that's the way to do it. And those guys were there. This is a much better way to do it. So just by doing something like that, saved the customer almost, $3,000-$4,000 plus what I would have charged them to go in there and finesse that finish and then that size into the part. Now I'm just going to do it with an end mill.
So what I'm hearing is that the way to perhaps bridge that gap is to really focus on collaboration and bringing in the expert in manufacturing to brainstorm ways to reduce costs.
A lot of customers do that now. I'm actually very, very surprised how many do. They'll send a design over that, for a quote, and then on the same email or whatever, it's, can you also take a look and see if there's anything we can do to save money and or make this part more efficient or better. It's amazing how many people actually do it now.
That's great.
It is good. It saves so much so much in the design and in the manufacturing of parts, and you can be more cost effective and everything else. It's phenomenal.
What are some of the most common manufacturability issues you see and share with customers?
The simple one is that they draw a drilled and tapped hole, and they don't put the point of the drill in there and make it a flat bottom. It doubles the price of a hole. And that's the simplest little thing. I don't know. Some of the design software don't do it automatically. Some do. SolidWorks is one that does, but some don't. Mm-hmm. So it leaves a flat bottom hole. Well, we build the print.
Okay.
So your hole, instead of costing you, $1 is going to be $2.
For the product designers out there who are listening to this, that's a simple tip that sounds like it'll save you some money. Exactly. And do you see designers pretty good now at looking at fits where the tolerance stacking is considered, or is there still a lot of line-to-line design?
Yeah, there's a lot of line-to-line designs. A lot of what I call seat of the pants, just guess at it. Should take the time and do a stack up and make sure it's going to work. It does take time, but it's like I tell my lead man all the time. Sometimes going slow is faster. Mm-hmm. It takes time. I understand, and that nobody has time to do it, but in the long run, they all do. So,
right. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
I can't think of anything. We covered quite a bit here, and I enjoyed it. It's fun to talk about what you do. Well,
speaking of fun, what do you like to do when you're not in the shop making parts?
I play golf. Play a lot of golf.
Is that something in the retirement picture as well, or?
Yeah, I love playing golf. I play in a league every Monday night, and then I usually get out at least one other day or one other weekend day, sometimes an afternoon. Mm-hmm. And I like going to the gym. I try to work out 4 days a week.
You ever used your shop to adapt a club or any other piece of golf gear?
No. I'm not that good. The amount of technology that goes in those things it's mind-boggling.
Right. No, I know. I understand that the design considerations, they have it pretty dialed in, but I was just curious if you were a tinkerer in that sense or not. Or sounds like
we made a couple of things for a pro over in I can't think of the name of the course now, but he had a thing that he designed for making putts more accurate, and it was just kind of like a ring, and we made like a half a dozen of them for him, and he uses them in his teaching. I'm not quite sure how they work, but we have actually made something for a golf pro.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
So where can customers get more information about S&S Machine? Do you have a website?
I do. It's ssmachineng.com.
And you also have a Facebook page?
Yep. It's SS Machine.
Okay, and I know that you mentioned you have a RFQ page on your website, so prospective customers can just submit a project right through that.
Correct, and that goes right through Paperless. And they can go to Paperless Parts and find us through that as well.
Super. Yep. Well, I really appreciate the time chatting with you, Peter. I learned a few things myself about job shop manufacturing, and it was super having you on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Job Shop Show. Thank you for tuning in.